Allahu Akbar. It wasn't a routine prayer. It was the echo of a horizon being torn open. That morning, it wasn't sunlight that woke the guards at Negev Air Base. It was fire, a blinding light, not of dawn, but of sky-born fury, scorching through the illusion of invincibility. 04:37 a.m. on the 15th, a number once meaningless now carved into history, the moment the skies above Israel became irrelevant. In just a few heartbeats, the entire defensive triad, Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow 3, fell into dead silence. No alerts, no infrared signals, only cold flashes of fire streaking through the sky like meteorites anointed in prayer. They didn't scatter across multiple targets. They converged, a singular will, a singular purpose, onto one point, Negev Air Base. From hidden sites in the deserts of Yazd province, 10 hypersonic missiles launched in perfect synchronization, exceeding Mach 7, bending the laws of modern defense. Radar systems were blinded by the radar horizon gap, a decades-old weakness never before exploited to this degree. Inside the command room, officers saw only black screens and ghost signals. No system responded. These missiles didn't just arrive fast. They arrived with intent, with metaphysical precision. A technological silence blanketed a nation that once believed it ruled the sky. This wasn't merely an attack. It was an execution ritual of the hypersonic age, the beginning of a collapse not caused by bombs, but by hubris, folding back like a double-edged blade. Israel, a nation whose airspace is blanketed by sensors, satellites, and radar, heard nothing. Not because their ears were deaf, but because the thing that came to awaken them did not knock on physical doors. It slipped silently through the cracks of complacency. At Negev Air Base, the night unfolded like any other. Technicians reviewed the next morning's flight schedules. Shift changes took place. Radar operators settled into routine. No one predicted that darkness would be torn apart, not by conventional missiles, but by a weapon that defied the logic of modern defense: hypersonic ballistic missiles. From the deserts of Yazd, 10 missiles launched in perfect unison, like a chorus of death. But rather than scatter across targets, they converged on a single point: the heart of Israel's aerial power. They didn't soar high. They left no thermal trails. They triggered no early warning systems. Instead, they twisted unpredictably mid-air, rendering every intercept algorithm obsolete. Like electromagnetic phantoms, they exploited an age-old, deadly flaw: the radar horizon gap, where low-flying, ultra-fast threats slip past every artificial eye. Inside the command center, indicator lights flickered, then went black. Sensor screens flashed error messages, then vanished. One air defense officer recorded the moment. "We thought the system was jammed. We didn't realize it had forgotten how to function." By the time anyone began contemplating a countermeasure, the sky had already delivered its verdict. These were not anonymous projectiles. Each of the 10 missiles bore a name: Najm 9, Rij Al-5, Emraj 33, Fajr, Siraj 8, Zarqaya 12, Bakir 77, Azrak 2, Najm, and Zulfikar X2, each etched with layers of meaning. Najm, meaning star, evokes Quranic verses. Siraj translates as lamp or guiding light. Zulfikar references the double-edged sword of Imam Ali, symbol of divine justice in Islamic mysticism. These names weren't just designations, they were coded sermons launched into the sky. Prior to launch, 8 anonymous Sufi ulama, cloaked in white and silence, circled the missiles in a desert plain. No cameras, no speeches, only chants. Their prayer was not for victory, but for remembrance. One whispered, "Let the sky fall not by iron, but by arrogance built on blood." This was ritual weaponization, where faith becomes force and war becomes warning. Yet, behind this spiritual pageantry stood a terrifying logic. These weren't primitive vengeance tools. Each missile was a hypersonic glide vehicle, capable of exceeding Mach 7, shifting trajectory mid-flight, and rendering predictive defense systems impotent. Their function was tactical, but their symbolism was transcendent. The sky, long dominated by drones and satellites, was reclaimed momentarily as a canvas of rebellion. A protest not just in steel, but in scripture. What struck Negev wasn't just fire. It was a theology of vengeance reimagined through modern propulsion. When the sky finally spoke, it did not whisper.
What that is?
It roared 10 times. The first missile collapsed the control tower, its skeletal remains crumbling like a cliff face carved by divine force. The second struck Bravo 4 barracks, vaporizing 600 soldiers in their sleep. No footsteps, no alarms, only blankets mid-fold, arms still wrapped around pillows.
I can't see anything. It's
Dreams interrupted by incineration. Strikes 3 through 5 tore through jet hangars, melting the pride of Israel's air fleet. 12 F-35 Lightning IIs, F-15I, IRAAMs, and stealth surveillance drones, all reduced to mangled alloys and charred insignias. Some exploded before their engines ever ignited. The 6th and 7th missiles struck deep, munitions, bunker, and fuel depot, igniting a firestorm that rose into the night like a second sun, casting shadows over Jerusalem. The 8th impact left a crater the size of 2 soccer stadiums, tearing open the desert floor. The 9th strike obliterated the perimeter defenses. The final blow, Zulfikar X-2, was surgical. It didn't just destroy, it erased. Even satellite imaging, taken hours later, struggled to delineate where buildings once stood. In total, over 2,000 lives were lost, many found still in sleepwear. One 19-year-old cadet clutching a photo of his mother, melted into his uniform by shrapnel heat. Debris scattered over 4 kilometers. Fragments pierced rooftops, impaled a nearby elementary school, miraculously empty due to holiday break. An 18-second viral video from a base technician captured it all. We thought it was an earthquake. Then we saw the sky hallucinate. No jets, no sirens, only flame and silence. Not a battle, an execution by mathematics and theology. This was not chaos, it was choreographed collapse. As flames still licked the cratered remains of Negev, panic bled into power corridors in Tel Aviv. Inside the underground war room, Israel's prime minister sat at the head of the security table, flanked by generals and intelligence chiefs. But for the first 17 minutes, he said nothing. Only the sound of a pen tapping, the flick of a lighter nervously clenched in his fingers, and the deep rhythmic inhale of disbelief. Silence from the top became its own crisis. Across from him, a 3-star general, one of the few senior officers spared by sheer coincidence, attending a defense summit in Jerusalem, hurled his helmet against the wall. Shattered glass, dented dignity. His voice broke. "We weren't attacked. We were punished." The phrase caught like wildfire on encrypted military channels. No wings in the sky. It described more than missing aircraft. It captured the evaporation of a doctrine. Air superiority, once unquestioned, had collapsed in 6 minutes. Strategic paralysis followed. No jets, no drone patrols, no satellite relays. The country was blind, deaf, unshielded. Markets tumbled. The Tel Aviv Stock Exchange plunged 27% before noon. Ben Gurion Airport ceased all flights as control systems were deemed unreliable. Citizens flooded highways, some heading for bunkers, others toward northern borders. Gas stations overflowed. ATMs blinked, unavailable. Abroad, a stunned Washington offered no comment. NATO convened emergency calls. Russia and China reportedly began redrawing strategic overlays. From Tehran, only a 12-second video, 8 clerics in silence, palms raised beside missile shells. It wasn't triumph. It was a warning cloaked in prayer. Beyond the burnt hangars and silenced radars, the true devastation settled not in the ground, but in the collective psyche of a nation. In the middle of the wreckage, one image rose above the rubble. A half-burned Israeli flag, torn and blackened, yet still standing atop a pile of soldier helmets, some scorched, others untouched. Nearby, rescue teams discovered a family photo, somehow unburnt amid twisted steel. A father, a mother, and 2 children smiling beneath what had once been peaceful skies. The image was reposted millions of times with one caption: "They were waiting for someone who'll never come home." Far away, in Najaf, Iraq, an Iranian pilgrim claimed to see a star fall at dawn, followed by a quiver in the earth. He interpreted it as a divine answer, not to war, but to wounded justice. That morning, social feeds pulsed with a final quote from the ulama before launch. "We did not send iron, we sent reminder. When the sky stays silent, the earth begins to scream." This wasn't just a military failure, it was a spiritual fracture. A generation raised on sensors and drone feeds now found symbols more terrifying than explosions. The base hadn't just been destroyed, it had been unwritten, a theological message scripted with modern propulsion. Online, grief turned into existential rage. Why didn't my son's bulletproof vest matter? No sirens, just silence, and then nothing. In New York, the UN Security Council froze. Washington blamed intel breakdowns. Paris demanded a probe. But one question pierced every press conference. How did 10 missiles outwit the most advanced shield on Earth? When war begins in arrogance, it ends in solitude. That phrase now echoes not just in the burnt soil of Negev, but in the corridors of every command bunker and the quiet spaces of every civilian home. This simulation, though fictional, serves as a mirror held to the face of modern warfare, reflecting truths that strategy alone cannot contain. No fortress is impregnable when built on overconfidence. No technology, no matter how advanced, can defend against the consequences of forgetting humility. The destruction of Negev wasn't just the collapse of concrete and steel, it was the unraveling of a belief system. That domination is destiny, that might ensures immunity. Important disclaimer: this story is entirely a work of fiction, based on speculative simulation. All characters, locations, and events portrayed are imaginary and do not represent any real individuals, governments, or occurrences. The narrative is not intended to incite, provoke, target, or defame any group or nation. It is written solely for educational and reflective purposes. A creative exercise meant to prompt thought, empathy, and discussion about the human cost of conflict and the pathways toward peace in a world that remains dangerously volatile. We believe that honest, open dialogue, rooted in human dignity and shared values, is the only viable path toward a more humane future. Because ultimately, history is not only written by the power that prevails, but by the courage that chooses not to use that power. If this story moved you, if it raised questions or struck a nerve, leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more narratives that challenge assumptions and search for light amid the storm. Next time, may the world choose wisdom over war.